this is gonna sound bonkers. Starless Sea to me felt like listening to a Pinterest page. I'm back. I think we're gonna I'm gonna respect myself, I'm gonna respect you guys as the viewers. We're just gonna respect each other, and we're not gonna do the whole I can't believe how long it's been since the last time I filmed. Oh, I'm so sorry for the wait. 2021 is gonna be better, and I'm not gonna, we're gonna just go ahead and fast forward, skip all of that. But yeah, I'm gonna go through what I read in 2020, which was rough for me, and I'm not gonna talk about that in this video because if people want to hear about it, then they'll ask for it, but I doubt that anyone wants to hear because everyone has had not an equally bad 2020, but everyone has had a rough year. So I'm just gonna go through the books I read. 2020 was actually sort of a milestone year for me as far as reading goes because it's the first time that I seriously started reading audiobooks. I think I've tried to read audiobooks before, and it just wasn't, I don't know what it was, but 2020 I started working in a library. My favorite job. I love it so much. I'm stocking shelves and pulling books that people have on hold and stuff. It's beautiful. I work in the stacks. I don't work at a desk or anything, so I don't have to talk to people. I love talking to people, but I'm alone, so I listen to podcasts and audiobooks. So yeah, I started having a lot of time where I could just be on my feet and sort of zone out and listen to audiobooks, and it was beautiful. A beautiful experience. Truly I'm going to keep reading audiobooks, I think, for the rest of my life. Not just, only audiobooks, but, I don't think I'm going to stop. It was very nice. Very, very nice. And so the majority of the books on my list from 2020 are audiobooks. And I'm just going to go ahead and get started after that sort of preamble. Oh, I did also want to say, I'm also doing this sort of for posterity because I think, at least for me, in my head, 2020 was obviously a hell year with the pandemic and everything and all the other stuff that happened. And I have depression, and so for me, a lot of my memory can be clouded. You know what I mean? In my head, I'm oh, 2020, awful. I did really, really bad at my reading goal, which was 150 books. LOL. And I just I can write off the whole year. But when I actually sat down to go over all of the books I read, thankful for the Libby app, which sort of kept track of all of the books that I was checking out because I wasn't buying books at all in 2020. I sort of went through all the books that I had read, and I was oh, I actually did read some books. I didn't really, it wasn't the write-off that I thought it was. My brain can lie to me, and all of my fellow people out there who experience this know what I'm talking about. But my brain tells me things that aren't true. For example, you're a failure because you didn't read any books this year. And then I sit down and actually write it out like my therapist tells me to do. Shout out to listening to our therapists. And I'm oh, I gotta change my perspective. Anyway, this is a long preamble. We're gonna get into the books now, I promise. Okay. So here's what I'll say. A lot of the books on here are romance, because the inkling, thought, even the perception of any kind of serious conflict in a book made me immediately want to shut it. I think probably it's not hard to figure out why, considering all of the external conflict that I was dealing with in 2020. So a lot of my books are simply books that I know are gonna be, for the most part, pretty happy, or at least the conflicts are misunderstandings, as is the case for a lot of romance. So we're gonna kick off with 99% Mine, which is by the author of The Hating Game, I think, right? That's correct. Which is one of my favorite books and is a book I own. I think it's actually missing from my shelf. Yeah, right there. It's the blue book, and it's somewhere in my room. Because I was reading it just the other day, The Hating Game. But she also wrote 99% Mine, which is another romance, which is the first book. And then The Proposal, and then The Wedding Date. And then Lady My Midnight, Beauty and the Blacksmith, and Red, White, and Royal Blue. All of these so far are romance, and they were all lovely. Red, White, and Royal Blue, I think I'm so proud of myself for getting through, because the other thing that made me extremely anxious, but just the thought of like, oh, there's all these books on this list that I have to read. Everyone's reading them right now, and I really got to read them. Red, White, and Royal Blue, I was late to. I mean, like, everyone's reading it in 2019, I think. So, like, I was super late to it, and I had put a lot of pressure on myself to read it. And then I finally read it, sort of devoid from that pressure, and it was an audiobook. It's not the first audiobook I read, but it's, like, the first audiobook that made me, like, really love audiobooks, you know? And I think it has to do with the format of the book. A lot of it is like conversation. Really enjoyable audiobook, I think, because of the format of the book. A lot of it was conversational, and like their emailing back and forth, like that kind of thing was really fun to hear, and like they're different in the different voices. And love Red, White, and Royal Blue. Obviously that's not a, you know, particularly exciting opinion to have, but here we are. Then I read Any Duchess Will Do, Honey Don't List, Party of Two, Undercover Bromance, Take a Hint, Danny Brown. Hello. I'm gonna just like stop and do little chats about the sort of the ones that stick out to me that I remember. I just prepared a list. I didn't prepare like notes or anything. But Take a Hint, Danny Brown was so cute. I love Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and Take a Hint, Danny Brown was adorable. I love a fake romance that turns into a real romance. So super cute, and I love that it was an interracial relationship with, how do I say this tactfully? No white people involved. It was very nice to read. Yeah, loved that. Audiobook as well. I would like drive to work and listen to it in the car. Beautiful experience, 10 out of 10. Would absolutely recommend, 100%. All my like effort and power behind pushing that. Then I read the Bromance Book Club, which is part of the, I think it's the first one, and I read Undercover Bromance first. That was like a cute little, you know, like that was kind of cute, about like men who read romance to like know how to like be in relationships with women, because a lot of it is like, it's like about like respecting the romance genre, so it was a little like on the nose, but it was really, really cute. Then I read, here we go, Twice in a Blue Moon, Wedding Party, Princess in Theory, which I reread. I think I've read that one before. And here is where it starts to get a little, I wouldn't say embarrassing, but like if I was gonna like roast myself, and we might turn like the second half of this video into like a roast, then this is where I'm gonna roast myself. I had heard so much about the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I was like, I have to read this book. I gotta read this book. And I had a feeling that it was one of those books that I like was really, really hyped up that I would end up not liking, like Daisy Jones and the Six, which I think I mentioned in a video where I read it and I DNF'd it because I just couldn't, it was just not interesting. I don't know why. And so I got this 7 Husbands on audiobook. I put it on hold. The audiobook wasn't available, and I put the book on hold also at the same time. This was sort of a while before, and so then it came in, the book came in, and I was like, okay, here we go, like, let's read it. And I just couldn't read it because I put, of course, so much pressure on myself to like really have an opinion about this book. And so when it came to reading it, I was like really, really nervous. Anyways, I have no idea what it is, man. I just could not get through that book. And I don't know, I think it was like the fact that it was a book, you know, like not to be like the person who's like, you know, romance books aren't real books, but for me, romance books are very like comforting. And so it was a very tonal shift for me where it was like, this is a book, like I really gotta pay attention and like can't get lost and like zone out, or can't, you know, it's like not as soothing to me. Romance books are sort of something very natural. I don't know what it is, man, but we're gonna move on because I can't keep talking about how 7 Husbands is haunting me. I need to finish it. I do need to go back and get it and read it, but then, which this isn't great either, the next book I read was Starless Sea. this is gonna sound bonkers. Starless Sea to me felt like listening to a Pinterest page. Kind of like my mood board. So my mood board is right here, and like I'm not gonna like, you know, just turn the camera or whatever, but like my mood board is right here. Starless Sea was so beautiful to like listen to, and like some of the like imagery was like really described beautifully. And Erin Morgenstern, I think, is a great author. There's another book of hers that I mean to read. Obviously everyone knows what it is. I was like screaming at the camera, but I've like heard of her before, and like I know that she's like a good writer. But Starless Sea, bro, like I was listening to it, and it just was like beautiful imagery after beautiful imagery, beautiful character description after like character description. You're like, oh, this is great characters. I love this character. I love this imagery or whatever, but like it wasn't coming together as a book for me. And I don't know what it was about. I have no idea. But this is gonna sound like Seven Husbands again. But to me, it seemed like a collection of beautiful like thoughts, ideas, sentences. Like the idea of having a storybook that you pick up and like, you know, you find yourself in the story or whatever. I guess I should probably have said at the beginning this is gonna be pretty spoilery for all of these books maybe. But it's such a beautiful idea. The idea of like an underground society with like the cloaks and the marks and whatever, beautiful. The idea of like a door that if you open it, like it like will lead you somewhere else, and you choose not to open it, and then it like haunts you for the rest of your life. The idea of like all of these different ideas that were in the book that were so beautiful, and I was like listening to them, and I was like, wow, wow, wow. And it was just, that was it. I was just like, wow, wow. Is there a story at some point? Where's it going? And so I just kept waiting for stuff to happen, and it just wasn't happening. And I think I just wasn't patient. Like I was just not in a position to like be patient enough to like wait for stuff to happen, which is why I liked the romance books, because they were shorter and stuff was always happening. So I don't want to sound like I'm making fun of any genre or like being mean to an author or whatever, but like that's where I was in 2020, so you have to respect that. Then I read Tweet Cute. Tweet Cute was absolutely adorable. Loved Tweet Cute. I think like, I don't know, at first I was like, oh, high schoolers, like, ugh, I'm not really interested in that. Because I've noticed that I'm not really interested in reading about high schoolers anymore, which makes sense because I'm in college. So I was like a little like, ugh, is this gonna be like, ew, like my AP exams, not to be mean to high schoolers, but like I just couldn't like deal with that, you know what I mean? Like it's like not, anyway. But it was absolutely really, 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 really cute because, of course, I love Twitter. And you wouldn't be able to tell based on, like, my book Twitter because I haven't really been active on that. And coming back to it has scared me a lot. But on my personal Twitter, I'm really active. So Tweet Cute was adorable. I love banter, and banter over Twitter is also my favorite. I also, like, this is, like, you guys are going to keep my secret, right? Like, I can tell you guys anything. I have, like, a crush on somebody that I, like, tweet with on my like personal Twitter account. Don't even worry about it. But anyway, so like I like felt like really connected to it or whatever, you know what I'm saying. But it was a really cute story. I love the story, and I love like the companies. I love a small business story. And yeah, I think it was like really well written. I'm like almost kind of like surprised by how much I liked it. I reread The Honeymooners. I reread Get a Life, Chloe Brown. You can almost like track, like when I'm rereading a bunch of my favorite books, you can sort of tell that I'm like not doing well. Then I read, oh, this is interesting. Then I read Searching for Sunday, which is a book by Rachel Held Evans, who passed away, I think 2019 or maybe early 2020, but I think it was 2019. But it's essentially a book about like Christian life, and she's somebody who's very critical of Christianity or like evangelical Christianity, and as someone who grew up in evangelical Christianity, and is sort of like deconstructing ideas that I learned. She's a very good author for that kind of thing, where she sort of, especially with regards to like the way that women are talked about and instructed and built up in the church, sort of really good for deconstructing ideas around femininity, ideas around the patriarchy, ideas around sort of traditional evangelical Christian ideas. And that book was really interesting. So it's sort of an outlier in the book, but I also read that as an audiobook, and it was really nice to listen to. And it was also kind of melancholy knowing that she had passed as I was reading it. Sorry to get like so serious all of a sudden. It sort of took a tonal shift there, guys. Sorry about that. Then I read Devil in Spring and Hello Stranger, which... Oh, okay, these are all like... these are all Lisa Kleypas. I think that's her name, Kleypas. Devil in Spring, Hello Stranger, Chasing Cassandra, and Cold Hearted Rake. I read all of those. I love her writing. I think that that series is great. I love Victorian England. I love reading about Victorian England, white women, like being in love with like rich white men because they like invented like trains or something. It's great. I love it. Escapist, beautiful, you know. It's my guilty pleasure. Yeah. And then I read, here it says beach read is the last thing I read, which I think is correct. Which was fun because it was like getting cold, and I read about, well, it doesn't take like place, I mean it does take place on the beach, but it's not like about being at the beach, but they live on like a coastal, anyway, it's really cute about like writers learning how to write other genres. And so it's like, she's a romance writer, he's a serious man who writes things that men will tell you they read and expect you to be impressed. And what if they try writing each other's genres, but they do it and like teach each other how to write their genres and pretend like they're not gonna fall in love while they do it, and then they fall in love. But it's also a really good look at grief, because the main like I almost said girl, the main woman in the story just lost her father and was sort of dealing with like, my father wasn't who I thought he was, and I just lost him, and sort of remembering people after they've passed and like reconciling like who you thought they were and who they actually are, and all of that, and sort of deals with it in a really interesting way. And like, I don't know, it's like, I hate being surprised when like romance books turn out to be deep, but it's like, they did turn out to be deep, and I hate like pretending like it's like a surprise, because it's good writing. So yeah, that's my list. I don't know, I think I read a lot more than I thought I did, while still reading a lot less than I had expected. That was about 30 books, and I had a goal of 150 that I thought I would be able to do. And incredibly, when the pandemic first started, I thought, oh, this is going to be even easier because now I have all this time at home. And then I got depression, ooh, and I stayed in bed for a long periods of time. I'm really glad that I made this video, because it's really nice to like acknowledge the things that you've done, especially when it feels like you haven't done much. So yeah, thank you guys, and goodbye.